Okay. They go into detail of, well, they're about to go into detail of this guy called Carl's story, and this can be seen throughout the book or novel, the things they carry, where they go into detail of every single person's like life, and instead of the Vietnamese soldiers, and it makes it seem like the Americans were like the protagonists of the war. And this music as well is sad.
Cheers, Jeff.
Many Vietnamese soldiers died as well, but again, like, they focus only on the American soldiers who die and make it seem like it's very tragic. I'm editing this right now, and I just realized what I said. Don't get me wrong, soldiers dying is like really tragic, but you know what I meant. Because that's like, they kind of make it seem like, again, like the protagonists of the war.
My very best to get 40 kids out of Vietnam alive. And if I have to turn into an evil machine to do it, then by God I will.
Well, this can be seen like he kind of loses like his rationality and becomes irrational. Like his morals change because of this war, and his mindset and what he wants to do and what he has to do to get that result.
What prevented me from doing it? I think it was pretty simple and stupid. It was a fear of embarrassment, a fear of ridicule.
In the documentary, he says how he didn't want to escape to Canada because he was afraid that like he was that it was going to be embarrassing, and like he didn't want to disappoint his like the people around him. However, in the things they carry, he tells the audience or the reader that he blames everyone around him for making him go to this war that he didn't want to go to, and he was kind of forced into it. So there's two conflicting reasons. There's two conflicting reasons to go to this war, and as you may know, in the things he carried, he tells a story like this. Part he's talking about right now is well, in the novel, the things they carried, it's chapter on the Rainy River, where he talks about you know, going on the border of the US and Canada, and talking about like his like thought process, and talking to this old guy and making his decision of whether or not he wants to flee to Canada and not have to join the army, or stay in the US and accept that he has to be a soldier and not disappoint the people around him. And obviously in the novel, like, Tim O'Brien is an unreliable narrator. He doesn't really tell the truth for the stories, and you know, like he has his own reason for doing that. It's to like to prove a point where in war stories it's not about whether or not like that thing actually happened, but it's about the meaning behind the war and the meaning behind the action. So that the whole process of him going to the border and talking to the guy is pretty much what happens here, and him asking his parents for all his like passport and stuff, and keeping it in his locker, and waiting or thinking if he wants to make that jump or stay where he is. And yeah, it's on the Rainy River. Maybe we don't trust what he says in the things he carried, and trust what he says in documentary, because it's a documentary and not a novel. Or maybe this is a way of him revealing to everyone that he did really blame everyone around him for making him go to this war and do something he didn't really want to. This region is very popular among these like young men who are forced into the war. Like they want to seem as like failures or disappointments, and they want to go there to show that they're courageous and brave. And in the things they carried, first, um, the very first chapter, there's a quote saying, "They carried the soldiers' biggest fear, which was the fear of blushing. Men killed and died because they were embarrassed not to. It was what they had brought. It was what they had brought. It was what they. It was what had brought it to them.
That you had you
It was what had brought them to the war in the first place. Nothing positive, no dreams of glory or honor, just to avoid the blush of dishonor. They died so as not to die of embarrassment." So you can see here where Tim O'Brien, he didn't want to die of embarrassment, and he goes to this war where he could potentially die. So there's two different uses of the word die, and there's that little comparison.
Ron kind of was in with the it's that failure of nerve and so we're
Okay, so in war, like in these situations, you kind of tend to focus on the small details, and this point of view of the soldier, it shows this kind of proves his point of like not proves his point. In the novel, Tim Ryan focuses quite a bit on the small details when there's like big things happening, for example, like a butterfly when someone has been killed, and this POV of the soldier, he's focusing on the small details. It kind of compares to that, and it's like similar in a way. This is just like a visual representation, and that is just like in text form. In the novel, like you have Tim O'Brien as like the person telling the story, and you have like the characters, or sometimes even the main character, or like or not the main character. You have Tim O'Brien as the author telling the story, and you have Tim O'Brien the soldier. And in that case, like it's very confusing. You don't know who's telling the story. You don't know who's which. And in this, you have like the narrator telling what's happening in third person, and you have the former soldier telling the experience. And this kind of difference makes it easy for us to see that when you story out like this, it's much easier to know who's saying what, and this to show like that the novel is really just confusing. Obviously, they're soldiers. They're starving. They want to eat the cat, but it sounds ridiculous. But maybe in that moment, when you really want something, you kind of find whatever you can get. You get, and this is kind of like a good example where, eating a cat right now would be a bit horrible to do. But for them at that time, it was like something normal to do, because
Are you sure about that?
Eating a cat then would be something that would make sense because they're desperate, and this kind of shows like how a lot of things are normalized in the war that aren't normalized right now. Like eating a cat.
So we kill the cat. We cut the head off, we cut the paws off.
Yeah, for the average human being, like that'd be like traumatic. But for these soldiers who've been through so much, they've probably watched their friends die right in front of them, and they've
I don't like
seen
where this is
horrible
going.
things, they've done horrible things. This is just like part of their daily life now. It's kind of normal for them. this kind of becomes like the thought process during the war. Like, since he's a prisoner of war and they've done something bad, like they kind of like accepted their fate. Like it's either we live or we don't. Like there's no like in the middle. So you know, they think they're gonna die. Like they're all gonna die once they kill the cat. Like that's kind of how their thought process is because of what the war has done to them. Just like kind of in the novel, like a lot of the soldiers, like after they've been in the war long enough, they kind of think in that way. Like you live if you do something right, and you die if you don't. And it's kind of like that line between dying and not dying. Well, his teammate, his acquaintance, someone on his team died, and this whole situation happened because of the cat. And all they could think about is whether or not they could eat the cat or not about friend dying, because they kind of think, okay, he's done something wrong. He has to go, and they kind of just focus on what they can get instead of what's been lost.